Odds are you think you're a pretty good videographer, but chances are you're just an average videographer. My name is John Cooksey and I want to welcome you to our tape on black belt camera techniques. These are techniques used by the broadcast professionals world over. You're going to see things on this tape that I guarantee you're not using now, even if you're an award-winning videographer. Speaking of which, I put videographers into two classes. The two classes are, number one, award-winning videographers. These are people that are currently winning awards now or certainly have the potential to win awards. Their work is excellent, they're doing all sorts of creative shots, they're constantly striving to do better. They know that even if they pick up only a few different techniques on this tape that they hadn't thought of before, it'll be well worth the investment because they'll add them to their arsenal of techniques. The other kind of videographer is just the average, mediocre videographer. A lot of these videographers think they're great. They don't get complaints, they've been shooting for many years, they have a great tripod, they're self-taught. We've heard all the excuses, but this can actually hinder them by thinking you're really good when you're not, because then you stop learning. The award-winning or black belt videographers know they can never stop learning. No, they always have something else to learn. And I promise you, no matter what category you're in, whether you're the award-winning videographer or you're the other category, the person striving to be like that, you will learn things from this video that you will be applying to your videotape productions. Broadcast professionals are using shots on television every night that videographers around the country, whether they're videographing for documentaries or they're videotaping weddings at events or sports or cable television, they're not using these techniques. And the real shame about this is it doesn't cost anything to learn these techniques. You can watch them on TV and take notes. This videotape is going to be a shortcut. We're taking the best of the best techniques and applying them on one tape. That means in the course of this hour or so, you're going to have a cram-packed information that you can take on the job with you. We've also included a shot list. With these two things and reviewing the tape every couple of weeks, you'll be able to change the way you shoot forever. As videographers, we're often fascinated by the latest, greatest piece of equipment that's going to make us more money, that's going to make us better, that's going to get our resolution better. But then, by focusing on that stuff, we stop focusing on camera technique. It's only natural to find out what the latest, greatest toy is. But the important thing is the camera work, telling the story. So come take a journey with me as we show you the different techniques that the broadcast pros use to make their work better than any other videographers. Right now we're going to talk about the 5 essential positions that you must do to be a creative camera person. And they're simply this. Position number 1, at the ground level. Great for getting some low-level shots. Tilt up the viewfinder. You're going to be able to get some fantastic shots from this level. As a matter of fact, broadcast camera people use this all the time. They also use position 2, which is right at the waist. Again, you have your viewfinder tilted up, and it allows you to get many different angles, and it's not really that threatening to people. You can sneak in real close. It's a great position. Position 3 is very close to that. Simply bringing it up here. This is nice if you need to get in close to people, but you don't want to get too close and be too threatening. Right underneath. I use this a lot in real tight quarters, and it's very similar to the one that we're all accustomed to, position 4. Now, position 4 obviously is the one that the camera is designed for, but it's not necessarily the most creative. So position 4 you're going to use for a lot of things, but other positions may come in much more handy when you're doing creative shots. Of course, position 5, right over your head, tilt the viewfinder down. After a while, you won't even have to tilt the viewfinder down because you will be able to understand what you're getting. Use your camera on wide and use position 5 for a lot of nice high-angle shots. You can stand on a chair, you can get on a fence or something and get that extra high angle. Or if you're not on a fence, this brings your camera up a lot more than you're used to. So to review the positions for creativity, the 5 positions starting at the ground level. Position 1. I use this one a lot for a lot of ground level shots. It's really handy. And position 2, right at the waist. This is going to come in a lot handy for doing some quick pans and some landing on shots and some rack focus. This is a very good one. Position 3, right underneath, tucked in here. It also allows you to look around, see what's going on, and then videotape. Position 4, not as easy to look around because you got your camera blocking over your shoulder here, but a good standard shot. And of course, position 5, way up here. Now, if you use these positions equally and disperse them all through your video, you're going to show your creativity goes up quite a bit. If you use these in combination with what I call the Waldo technique, your creativity is going to go tenfold. Let's go to the Waldo technique next. For years, I've been looking for ways even to train the most advanced camera person to be much more creative on the job. Now, this is not always easy to do. You're on the job, you're hot, tired, you're thinking, how can I get more creative? Well, I've come up with a way that's simple, and if you remember one word, you can be much more creative. That's called Waldo, and it's spelled a little differently. It's spelled W-A-L-L-D-O. I'm going to tell you now exactly what that stands for and how it's going to make you much more creative. The W in Waldo stands for wide. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to be taking all wide shots to be creative. It simply means that a lot of creative shots are done with the camera in the full wide position, most of the time getting closer to your objects. This will enable you to get depth of field and perspective that many times you can't do from a zoomed in position. The second thing I want to talk to you about is angled shots. Some of the top broadcast professional people use angled shots all the time. Now, this means when you're videotaping signs and when you're videotaping people and buildings and stuff, if you want to get creative, I want you to think angles. Angles add a three-dimensional perspective to something which is pretty much two-dimensional, the television screen. It's amazing how many people call themselves professionals, yet they neglect to get the low angles. I'll show you what I'm talking about now. Angles like this. Broadcast professionals get these angles all the time, every shoot they do. Why? Because they add some perspective, they give the object some dominance, and they're really creative shots. On your next job, use low angles like this or low angles like this to give the viewer an interesting perspective and to vary it with your other shots. A linking shot is one of my favorite shots. It allows you to attach two subjects in the same scene together by various means, as you see here. Linking shots are great because you can't always get everything in the same shot, but this allows you to connect things and bring the viewer emotionally together, attaching two different subject matters in the same shot. Sometimes this is done with rack focus, sometimes this is done with a pan, sometimes this is done with a pullback. A linking shot is used all the time in broadcast TV, and it's up to you as a professional videographer to use linking shots as much as you can. Another way to be extremely creative is through the depth shots. Now, depth shots can be putting the thing in the background way out of focus, or using a rack focus, or going in with a low angle to add depth to the scene. Depth is very important when it comes to creativity, because once again, you're talking about a two-dimensional medium, the television screen, and trying to make it more three-dimensional. So when you're thinking creative, you want to think of depth shots. An opposite shot is simply the reverse of what you would normally videotape. If you're videotaping at a ground level, it may be a high angle shot. It may be a reverse angle shot. It could be any number of different shots that are not normally done. Opposites are what creativity is all about. It brings the reverse into the shot. It allows the viewer to see a different angle, and it gives more perspective to your television picture.
The opposite principle can be hard to understand at first, but the more opposites you see, the easier it will be to understand what they are and how to use them to be more creative.
Now let's see an example of how to put Waldo to use immediately in your videotaping. Suppose you were hired to videotape a small airplane at the airport. Some videographers would do the average boring shots. But you, knowing the Waldo technique, have the power to keep the viewer's interest. So let's take a look at how a broadcast pro would videotape the scene.
doing advanced camera techniques is easy. There are 3 basic elements. First of all, your shot idea, and you're going to see more of these later. Second of all, one or more of the creative formats: wide, angled, low, linking, depth, and opposite. And the third thing is one of the camera positions 1 through 5. For this shot, we wanted to show the barbecue at the lake. Nothing was set up except the bottle was moved for the best composition. Note all the different elements in the same scene: earth, fire, water, wind, and of course, food. The average videographer has been conditioned to the nightmare of unwanted backlighting, and as a result, they tend to forget about backlighting as an artistic shot. But the broadcast pros use backlighting all the time as a creative element. To do this, get a bright scene and turn down your iris control until the foreground becomes dark. These backlight shots are mainly done in camera position 1, 2, and 3, and creative formats wide, angle, and low. If you really want to be as good as the broadcast pros, you're going to have to start using reflection shots. Chances are you're not using reflection shots now. It's time to change. You haven't been using them because you weren't aware of how important they can be to your video production. The top pros in the country use these all the time because they fall into 2 categories: the opposite and linking. Plus, they add extra dimension and depth to your camera work. Make sure on your next job you try to incorporate at least 1 reflection shot in the work you do.
The walk out of frame shot is one of my favorites because it's not just a shot, it's also a transition. It simply involves letting your subject walk out of the frame as a transition into your next shot. Once again, the subjects go out of the frame, as you'll see, and it brings you to your next shot. This is done all the time on broadcast television, and it's up to you to start doing these. So don't always pan the subject as they go by your field of view. Make sure you let them go out of view sometimes, and it creates an excellent opportunity to bring you to your next shot. The walk out of frame shot is considered one of the benchmark techniques that separates the amateur videographer from the professional. The best way to master this technique is to try it when you're not on the job. Take your camcorder downtown and practice it a couple times. Once you do that, you'll probably use it on every job you do. If I see a shot on TV I really like and I'm managed to be able to record it, I could either freeze frame and take a sketch of it, or I have a video printer and I get a shot of the angle that I like and I want to be creative. I can then bring that, show the camera person I'm looking for this kind of angle. I can even show it right to the screen and he can move and adjust to get that same angle that we see in the print. This is a great way of being able to transfer some kind of angle and some kind of thing that you see on television directly to what you're doing, as we're doing here. You take a shot off TV of the angle you like, or you sketch it out as best you can, and then you're able to bring that along to the job to give yourself an idea and to give the cameraman an idea of exactly what you're looking for.